Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of my series of subject matter expert interviews. My name is Cindy McDonald. I'm a adjunct faculty for the UCLA Online College Counseling Program. And I love having different people from throughout the country talk about college and Joseph's. And she is going to talk about her role and things that she does. So welcome, Rebecca.
Hey there, Cindy. So nice to meet you. And by the way, everybody, I'm a graduate of this program. I graduated in 2010 because even though I have a PhD in urban school reform, I knew nothing about how to help students with college access until I went through this program. And one of the major benefits of this program is meeting people from around the country and the community, as well as actually learning about the groups that support you. So I highly encourage you now to get student memberships at WACAC or at HECA or ICA, these groups that welcome independent college counselors.
And we have many students who are also in private schools throughout the world, public schools, nonprofit groups. So this area has really grown and expanded so much.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. How did you get into working with students in this area? Why did you go do the doctorate that you did?
Well, the interesting thing is when I graduated from college and I went to Harvard, which is a blessing and a curse, what happened is I was lost. I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what it was. And so I kind of did a myriad of different things in my 20s and really realized that I wanted something that was a passion, something that I was so proud to do. So I became an inner city teacher in Baltimore City without a credential. And so got a credential, got my master's in urban education. And the more I taught, the more I realized that we needed more reform. And so I ended up getting a PhD at UCLA in urban school reform. And I became fascinated with high quality teachers. But I didn't understand that you couldn't be a teacher in isolation. Being a teacher is a teacher as part of a continuum, that whether you get them in kindergarten or 12th grade, your goal is that they're going to achieve amazing opportunities in life. And so when I was a 6th grade teacher, I didn't want to be the person to tell a child, your dream isn't going to come true. So what I do right now is I train high quality teachers to go work in urban schools. And then I give workshops all around the country, many of them with you, Cindy, on college access and readiness, because I believe everybody should have the option to go to college. I don't know that everybody should go to college. That's a whole different conversation. But I'm certainly not going to be the person to determine whether a group, in South LA is worthy of it. And in fact, it was fascinating to me. I went to a workshop a year ago, and there were 2 counselors there. They were both working in urban schools. And one counselor had all her students going to community college, and one counselor had all her students, same demographic, go to the Cal States, the UCs, and private colleges. It was all the perspective of the school and the counselor where the kids would go. Right. And I don't find that acceptable. So that's why I'm doing my work.
So you were recognized as an unsung hero in LA County last year for your work with your inner city students. Tell us more about your work and about the nonprofit that you founded.
So I have a website, getmetocollege.org, and everybody's welcome to use it because I have all kinds of tips on there. I also keep a list of 65 colleges that fly diverse seniors in to visit them, and many deadlines are still available. I believe that my goal is to hit as many different communities as I possibly can, but to also require the teachers and the leaders to be part of my workshops so that I can help them build capacity at their site so that I don't have to come back. But the sad thing for me in LAUSD is that there are only 22 school-specific college counselors, over 100 schools without a college counselor. Now, regions have amazing college counselor resources, and in fact, last weekend I presented at a college Saturday morning where 3,000 people were there in the North Valley. There is a tremendous hunger for knowledge, and so that's why I'm an unsung hero, because I refuse to get paid for this work. It's just part of my service. I make extra money by being a private college counselor and my job, but it's part of my life, going out and making sure that every kid has an opportunity. I really am working now on infrastructure because I really want to go to schools where I can leave behind the message. And today, for example, is a day of a yin and a yang. I'm going after this to Eagle Rock to talk to high school seniors about their essays, and then driving right across the city to the Palisades, their college night, to give 3 back-to-back workshops on college application essays. I also do workshops on how to find the right fit college, how to afford college. I use this amazing free resource that I highly recommend to everybody called SlideShare. And I upload all of my PowerPoints. Cindy and I have done that before. And you're welcome to go to mine. It's Get Me to College. And you're welcome to use any of my resources. Nothing is proprietary. I just believe that if you want to go do it, just make sure that, you have an agreement with the population that they will too spread your message. Well, I keep on going because it's never going to be finished.
Right. That's for sure. So when you're working with your students on personal statements, what techniques do you use and find that are effective for your student?
It's really interesting. It really depends where they're applying. I mean, if they're going to the Cal States, then they need to do their EOP questions, a large majority of them. And I believe that the majority of the people in your class aren't going to know what the EOP questions are. They're not going to know what EOP is. EOP is on all 23 Cal State campuses, and actually on the majority of other public campuses across the country, support programs for students for whom they need extra supports. And there I just tell them, just be honest and answer the questions. No creativity, just give specifics. And with all of my students, I start with a resume. I really believe that they need to learn how to advocate for themselves, and the way that you advocate for yourself is by having a resume. When I'm working with the University of California, I love their new application essays. I was initially very wary. I'm still not sure about 2 of the prompts, but I really believe that the new 8 prompts, and you can take a look at them online, they have great resources. The students have to choose 4 out of 8. It's like an interview with somebody where they have to impress the person to make them want to accept them. And so I go around LA right now talking about these essays, and they're getting advice like, oh, tell like a powerful story. I'm thinking, no, you need to go answer the prompt. The prompt wants to know, how did you make your community stronger? You need to tell them how you made your community stronger. They don't want to read an esoteric story about some moment in which you had a revelation. They actually want to know that, you started the Genocide Walk program at your school, that you really thought in doing this project you did this, or one of the other prompts is, where have you displayed your leadership, or where have you been creative? They really want answers. And I'm finding that these prompts are fantastic from a number of perspectives. First of all, I'm showing them to all 9th graders. And I'm showing the 9th graders, this is what the University of California is looking for. You need to think in the next 3 years, how are you going to be able to answer these questions?
Right.
And so I actually believe that they're changing they want to get these kids that are leaders and who have initiative. For example, one of their questions is, if you've had a challenge, tell us the steps that you've used to overcome it. I find that colleges right now don't want to know about sadness. They want to know about people who have grit and resilience and passions. Now, the common application is a whole other journey itself with a coalition application, because they're really basically giving these kids choices to tell stories. A lot of these kids are having a very hard time writing these essays because they live in a very superficial world of selfies and all kinds of Snapchats and emojis where they don't even use complete sentences. So what I do with these students, if I know them, I can help them really brainstorm what they want to talk about. Their resume, if I don't know them, I take a look at their resume and I brainstorm with them, what story do you think not only will get you into a college, but might get somebody to give you a scholarship? And so I had a kid, for example, he heard my advice and something personal. So he decided to come out to his parents in his college application essay. But on his resume, it turned out that he had 250 hours of volunteering for his local city council person, and even got to marry people when marriage was possible for gay and lesbian people in California. He hadn't mentioned that at all in his essay. So one of the things I'm really working on with teenagers is they don't really have a good sense of who they are yet. So this is where we, as their allies and coaches, don't write the essays for them, but we help them realize how powerful they are.
Mm-hmm.
Let them realize, maybe there's a metaphor about themselves they want to reveal. And I'm finding this year that the kids who have a clearer sense of themselves are having an easier time writing these essays than the kids for whom they're not clear about who they are. So that's why talking with the kids and really helping them understand the purpose of the essays helps me. And I tell kids that I'm never going to read their first draft. It's not worth it for me with the nonprofits. I read a second or third draft because I want them to have already gone through that kind of removing the unnecessary part of the essay. On my website, I have a list of brainstorming tips and I have a list of guiding questions so that the kids can go through my 10 questions and try to answer them. Usually they need to knock out the majority of the beginning of the essay and get to what's going on in the middle. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
kids just don't realize how awesome they are. I really go, this is what I notice is like if you ask them, they say, oh, I haven't done anything. I'm thinking, well, if I see your resume, you've done extraordinary things.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. They don't. They've been so, in English and all their classes have been taught not to talk about themselves, not talk about first person. And now all of a sudden we're saying, here's a piece of paper, write about yourself. So but it's such an awesome opportunity for them to start that self-reflection. And I agree with you, trying to do it earlier than, beginning of your senior year really helps. And so the message that you're sending and I've worked with Avid, doing the same kind of thing. And I've trained teachers and counselors throughout our Central California, 6-county area, and just how do they help in you starting and even as early as 6th grade and looking at some of these things.
And they're not going to use the 6th grade essay and they're not going to use the 10th grade essay because colleges really want to know about the recent kid. Mm-hmm. So I'm very wary of kids who want to talk about something that happened in 7th grade because I think the college applications have set and the steps that you've used to overcome. The opportunity, the common application used to have an essay talk about a failure. Now the essay is a lot of our successes come from a failure. Talk about a success that came from one and what it means. I'm thinking, well, yes, they want to know kids who have overcome challenges because right now I find that there are a lot of problems on college campuses right now, and they need students who can negotiate. They need students who can work as part of groups, and they need students who can lead. They certainly don't want to know about emotional weaknesses because right now they have a crisis on college campuses. That's something that kids should reveal when they get in, that they need support. I don't believe you need to write about being bulimic. You don't need to share. You and I have a whole PowerPoint that we posted on the danger zones. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that sometimes they think, oh, you have to tell the worst saga of your life. I'm thinking, no. I think they want a small moment of where you achieve something or where you accomplish something.
And that's a very good point. And I think that's where our role as counselors and advisors can be so valuable, is helping students to understand where the balance is and what's appropriate and what's not, because to them it's a very emotional thing and they may want to express it and reveal it in an essay, but it's not always the appropriate place, is not always to do it in their college essay.
Is if you write that essay during this process, this is great, go submit it to a magazine or a publication. Mm-hmm. And use it during freshman English because freshman English is first person narrative writing. Mm-hmm. So many of my students get to use these essays all over again in some form in freshman English or for a scholarship. Mm-hmm. But they have to write for scholarships. It's very interesting. I went to a client's house this week and the girl's written kind of a very delightful essay. And the parents said, but it's not sophisticated. And I said, she's 17. She's not sophisticated. We are sophisticated. We cannot go back and rewrite your daughter's essay because we think that it doesn't sound the way. Right. I said, it sounds exactly the way it's meant to be written. It's exactly the way she wrote her ACT or an SAT essays. And it's exactly the way the teacher's going to write about her in a recommendation. So that's one of the major battles I have with affluent families that I never have with, first generation.
Right. That's very true. And that's an important aspect. What other things, as you work with students in terms of applications in general, what are some other things that you find, especially with your inner city students, that they find challenging? And what have you?
They have a very hard time bragging about themselves. So that when a teacher gives them a brag sheet or a questionnaire, they tend to be fairly generic.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why I like the coalition application for 9th graders and 10th graders, is because they can be uploading their favorite papers and projects. And what I believe they need to do is students throw away their work. What we need to do is we need to help them on their computer or in a box, save things. And we have to get a list of powerful adjectives, personality adjectives, to help the students identify why they're special. And every single kid is special. The kid who's failed 9th grade and gone to summer school for 3 summers after 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade to make it up, that's an amazing kid. They just need to understand what the college wants to hear.
Right. Right. And that's the big challenge for students, no matter what their background or their family, because sometimes the family have the college experience. They think it's one thing, but things have changed so much, and the other ones have no clue.
Oh, and then the majority of the parents, if they did go to college, applied to 1 or 2.
Right. Right.
Now, regardless of who you are, you're going to be applying to more than 1.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to apply to 4. If you get free or reduced lunch, now you can apply to as many private universities as you want. I find that the major difference in LA is whether they have access to an external counselor for first generation kids, is whether they go beyond the Cal States and the UCs.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with these schools, but you have to be a self-starter. You have to want to be in very big classes. I also tell students, private colleges will often be cheaper than a public university. Yep. I tell students, I give workshops all the time about why they should live in the dorms. Mm-hmm. Because there are a lot of people, if they never live in the dorms, they don't understand how fantastic they are, mm-hmm. and that it's a gift to themselves. Don't they deserve 4 years of a gift of being able to study abroad, being able to get up, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and eat and talk to amazing human beings, get to participate? Oh, sorry about that. That's just, I'll decline that. It's the most important thing for me is that they have allies and advocates that open up their opportunities. Mm-hmm. In fact, I went to a school last year on Miguel Contreras to give a workshop. These 2 girls came up to me and said, Dr. Joseph, we had found your website, and I went to visit Tufts and I went to visit Union. And they had gone to visit these 2 schools. The girl who had visited Tufts was going to either Princeton or Dartmouth. But the girl who got into Union was fascinating to me. She had a 2.9 GPA. Her test scores were not shareable, but Union and Denison accepted her. Union paid for all but $2,000. Mm-hmm. And she's a sophomore at Union right now and doing just fine. Because a lot of my kids with the low GPAs is because they're a late bloomer, I call them. Mm-hmm. They didn't wake up until 10th or 11th grade.
And I think that's also a message that we need to communicate with our students and our communities is you don't have to be a perfect 4.0 student and have, out of this world SAT or ACT scores to go to college.
Yeah, I refer them to Fair Test, one of my favorite mm-hmm. websites, where that lists every single college that is SAT optional. And several added it this year. Skidmore is SAT optional. Wesleyan is SAT optional. George Washington, there are more and more colleges that are realizing that these tests reveal nothing about their students. The other thing that I try to get my first generation kids to understand is that they have to go find free test practice opportunities. Because the difference between their test scores and my affluent test scores is test prep.
Yeah.
And you only get better at testing by doing testing. So I don't let anybody ever tell me that they're a bad test taker. I just tell them they're an inexperienced test taker. And I tell them it's the same thing as being a musician. It's the same thing as being an athlete. You practice. Mm-hmm. And now Khan Academy has all these free practice opportunities. The libraries in their communities will have free opportunities. So that's another thing that I really work on is test prep.
Yeah. Yeah. And ACT is partnered with Kaplan as well. So students do have a lot of those different opportunities.
And the other reason why they need to take testing seriously is because they're going to have to do some kind of testing to get into their freshman classes in college. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these scores help them. Also, one of the biggest issues I have with kids is that they don't want to take the class they hate senior year of high school. So they'll stop their foreign language, they'll stop math, they'll stop something. And then I tell them, you're going to have to take a placement test at the end of senior year, and you're going to end up taking 2 to 3 more math classes than you ever wanted to take in your life if you hadn't given it up. And so I have these, this is where counselors need to really advocate for some things that are counterintuitive to a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I explain it to them. The other issue I have right now is I also, for all of my seniors in high school, help them plan their freshman year. Because I'm finding that transition to freshman year is much more rocky than it's ever been. And it's because they're not doing a soft landing. I'm calling it a soft landing. They don't go in there and try it out. They go in full force, and then they have a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give themselves a chance to be a freshman again.
Right, right. Yeah, that's very true. And I think that's an important thing for us to think about too, is we're not getting the kids out of high school, we're helping them be successful as an incoming freshman. And that's how I have my, as a counselor, that's the approach that I take with my students.
The other thing is I went to a great workshop by this woman. She's the intern queen. And she believes that the people who are truly successful getting the work they like do 4 to 8 internships between late high school and end of college. Mm-hmm. And that's the one advantage of being a college student is by law, you can do internships. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of schools will give them financial aid to do the kinds of things that they want to do. So I always encourage my inner city kids, if you don't have to work at Target or McDonald's, can you find your job on the college campus? Can you find a professor like me who can get work study money for you? Can you do internships so when you go on to the next step, you can get hired? Mm-hmm. So I'm doing a lot of work. You're also helping them find their first job.
And I think that's key too. So I think we're out of time. I know we could talk about this for quite a while, but how can someone in my class reach you?
So it's really easy. getmetocollege@gmail.com. And my Twitter's Get Me to College, and my website is Get Me to College. I got there pretty quickly. I love this, and it's getmetocollege@gmail.com. And they can just Google search Rebecca Joseph. There's a chef, there's a rabbi, and there's me. So.
Oh, how appropriate. So, well, good luck. Good luck with all your
you're a blessing to your class.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, we enjoy it. We have fun.
Okay.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.